Members, that takes us to address in reply. We will note that this is the honourable member's inaugural speech and the usual conventions and courtesies of the chamber are in place. The Honourable Anthony Spagnolo.
Thank you, President. I'll start by conveying my congratulations to the Honourable Alana Clohessy on your re-election as President and to the Honourable Steve Martin on his election as Deputy President. I stand today in this House as one of 5 new Liberal members of the Legislative Council, and I congratulate them and all members elected in the 42nd Parliament. It is no secret to my friends and family that standing here today is a culmination of a long-held aspiration. There is no greater honour than to represent Western Australia and the Liberal Party in this chamber. I'm deeply conscious of the privilege that has been granted to me by the community, and I thank them. I wish to acknowledge a predecessor of mine in this place, the Honourable Donna Faragher. Since 2005, Donna served with great distinction, demonstrating eloquence, a sharp wit, and a genuine commitment to the East Metropolitan region. Her legacy is one of service, integrity, and warmth, and she will be missed by all who had the privilege of working with her. I extend my heartfelt thanks to Donna for the support and encouragement she has shown to me. As it happens, I've inherited Donna's electorate office at 108 Swan Street in Guildford, and I'm grateful for the many briefings she has provided to me in that office over the past few months as I've prepared to take on this new role. I look forward to continuing the work she began with such passion and dedication. While the previous Parliament regrettably decided to abolish the Upper House regions, the Liberal Party continues to recognise these regions in how we organise our Legislative Council team. The area I'm focused on is what was formerly known as the East Metropolitan region, a part of Perth that is as vast as it is diverse. It stretches from Mount Lawley through the Swan Hills and Kalamunda, Mundaring and to the heart of Darling Range. And I'd like to take a moment to congratulate my friend, Adam Hort, on his recent election as the member for Kalamunda. This region is home to some of Perth's most iconic attractions, including the Swan Valley and Mundaring Weir, yet it also faces unique challenges. The ever-present threat of bushfires continues to put our hills' way of life in danger, and there is ageing infrastructure right across the Perth Hills. I know many communities in this region often feel overlooked by government, and I'm committed to ensuring their voices are heard and their needs are addressed during my time in this place. It will be immediately obvious to all that I have Italian heritage. My mother's parents, my nonna and nonno, migrated to Australia with hopes of a better life after the devastation of the Second World War. Their story is a classic example of post-war European migration success. Their journey was far from easy. My nonna, Emma, was the youngest of 7 children and grew up in Le Marche in Italy, when she was just 6 months old. Her father, Giulio, left for Australia in search of work. 10 years later, her brother, Gigi, followed. Then, when World War II broke out, communication with her father in Australia stopped. Soon after, Emma's mother, Lucia, fell ill and passed away. Emma was only 13. Her brother was called to fight in the war, and it fell to her and her sisters, Ida and Amelia, to take charge of the family farm. In 1948, Emma and her sister Ida made the long journey from Italy to join their father and brother in Australia. Their journey by plane took 7 days, and along the way, Emma saw countries and people she'd never imagined. Once in Perth, they worked on her father's orange orchard, and it was there that Emma met my nonno, Edio, who she eventually married, and together they began a family, including my mum, Lucy. On my father's side, both my nonna and nonno had already settled in Australia before the Second World War, hailing from Nassau and Capo di Lando in Sicily, in Italy's south. My nonno Tony, after whom I'm named, served in the Australian Army during the war. He fought us alongside my nana's brothers, who made a promise to him that if they all made it out alive and returned to Australia, they'd introduce him to their sister. True to their word, they survived, and the rest, as they say, is history. Tony passed away before I was born, making him the only grandparent I never had the chance to meet. Yet I often reflect on the sacrifices he made for me and my family. There is something truly extraordinary about the generation that lived through the Second World War the men and women who wore the uniform and those who supported them back home. At 28 years old, my nonno was in a war zone in Asia, fighting for a cause far greater than himself. At the same age, I had graduated from university and was working as an advisor to the WA opposition leader, and living a peaceful and relatively privileged life. I will be forever grateful for the sacrifices made by that generation, those who fought for our freedom so that we could enjoy the lives that we have today. I was one of 5 kids growing up and the only boy, surrounded by 4 sisters, Diane, Catherine, Emily and Michelle. They're all amazing and I'm incredibly grateful for them, but they also taught me some important life skills, like how to dodge hairbrushes and navigate a house full of strong-willed and clever women. This upbringing has proven very helpful given I'm now married to Abigail and we have 2 wonderful daughters, Gloria, who is 3, and Posey, who is 1, and continues to interject during my speech. So if you're wondering about my home life, it's basically a non-stop whirl of tea parties, ballerina dresses and piggyback rides. I note the ballerina dresses have made an appearance in the President's Gallery this evening. It's safe to say that in my home life, all my life, I've been surrounded by women, though nowadays it's less about avoiding Spice Girls dress-ups and more about helping Gloria find Floppy, her favourite toy bunny, or giving in to Posey's demands for a cuddle, which for the benefit of Hansard is the one-year-old version of the word cuddle. My family always had land growing up, including a cattle farm in Brunswick Junction. Farming taught me a love of animals and about the basics of running a business. But most importantly, it was incredibly fun. My sisters and I got up to all sorts of mischief. For most of my childhood, I grew up on a small hobby farm in Canning Vale and attended St Jude's Primary School in Langford, followed by high school at Corpus Christi College in Bateman. Although both were private Catholic schools, I was by no means the most conventional student. In fact, I maintained a bit of a mischievous streak throughout those years. For instance, I somehow managed to sport a mullet hairstyle for 6 months of Year 12 before I was finally instructed to cut it off. I often wonder whether I concealed it that well or whether my teachers simply found it amusing and chose to turn a blind eye for so long. To further illustrate my somewhat bogan youth, I also served as a lead singer of a Grinspoon cover band during high school. I readily admit I was not a particularly talented singer, but that did not stop me or my friends from thinking our endeavour was rather cool. While at that stage of my life I may have been a bogan kid from Canning Vale, I was always very aspirational and saw school as a stepping stone to future success. So I studied hard and did well in Year 12 and was offered and accepted a place at the University of Western Australia. I graduated with degrees in Commerce and Arts, with majors in Finance, Political Science and International Relations, and I hold a postgraduate degree in Asian Studies, where I focus on Australia's relationship with China. University was also where I discovered my love of politics. I began university at the tail end of John Howard's government. Howard was at the time, and still today, in my view, a truly great Prime Minister of Australia. I admire the economic program he oversaw in Australia, his steady leadership through difficult times and his tenacity as the Prime Minister. When starting at UWA, I can remember when I realised that the student union fee I had been paying was being used in part to fund a National Union of Students campaign, which I considered to be unjust and, frankly, a feral campaign against the Howard government. This feeling of injustice began my journey into the Liberal students and eventually the Young Liberals, and I joined their fight for voluntary student unionism on campus. That moment will become a transformative decision in my life. I'd like to take this moment to express my gratitude to the Young Liberal movement and Liberal students for everything they gave to me during my time in both groups. I had the honour of serving as Young Liberal President in WA and as a National Vice President, and through these roles I've made lifelong friends and gained valuable skills which have helped me reach the privilege of being a member of this chamber today. However, I must admit, when I first joined the Young Liberals, I was still the bogan kid from Canning Vale and in many ways did not fit what was typical for Young Liberals at the time. I still remember rocking up to my first function, wearing jeans, a black t-shirt, with a backpack full of economics textbooks on my back. Most of the other people in the room were wearing suits or summer dresses, and it all seemed very posh. and I was a little glad that by that stage the mullet was gone. I soon learned the informal dress code, and it was down to the shops to grow a pair of RM Williams boots, tan chinos, and a blue gingham check shirt. Yes, the stereotype at that point in time was very much true. I became the state president a couple of years later, and after a lot of trial and error, but ultimately thanks to the support of a good team of friends to back me up. In 2010, continuing the fight for voluntary student unionism, I became the campaign manager for the Young Liberal-backed Student Guild campaign at the University of Western Australia. Campus politics at the time had its fair share of characters, some of whom are well known to the people in this place today. Dylan Capehorn, now a senior journalist at the West Australian, was the main student journalist on campus at the time. And Liam Saltari and Lachlan Hunter, now members for Corrine and Central Wheatbelt, respectively, were active in the student politics scene. Many of the Labor students I competed against back then are now advisors in the state government, and I have no doubt some of them will eventually find their way into this chamber too. But I want to make a special mention of my friend, Matt McKenzie. At the end of the 2010 campaign, of which I was the campaign manager, Matt was elected as a Student Guild president, something a Young Liberal-backed candidate hadn't achieved at UWA since the mid-80s, and something that hasn't been replicated since. That single year of Young Liberal-backed administration at UWA, the only time in the past 40 years that we held control, led to the mass privatisation of catering services on campus, starting with the main coffee outlet on Oak Lawn across from the UWA Law School. Safe to say the move was extremely popular. Prior to 2010, all food outlets on campus were operated, and I'm not making this up, on socialist principles, with no private businesses allowed on campus. As you can imagine, it was a disaster. The food was dreadful, the Student Guild lost money running the whole operation, and most students just voted with their feet, fleeing to buy lunch off campus. I even spotted members of Socialist Alternative at the Broadway shops buying their lunch from time to time, although I'm sure they would deny that. Turns out socialism doesn't work too well when it comes to feeding students. It was this very issue that we campaigned on and won that student election. I'm pleased to see today's UWA campus is now a bastion of capitalism when it comes to food services. The Guild makes a healthy profit from renting out buildings to the private small businesses who now provide most of the food. And tens of thousands of students have and will continue to benefit from it. Little do they know, there's a small business journalist named Matt McKenzie, who these days works at the West Australian as a business journalist, or as I mentioned, who is largely responsible for that. Within the Liberal Party, I gained a fair bit of interest after that win, and I soon found myself being offered roles by members of Parliament to come work for them. I worked for the federal member for Swan, Steve Irons, before becoming a ministerial advisor in the Barnett government to the late Andrea Mitchell, who was a Minister for Child Protection and Mental Health. I also worked for the WA Liberal leader when we went into opposition, before heading to Canberra to work for Scott Morrison's government. During my time in Canberra, I had the privilege of serving as a senior budget advisor to the Australian Finance Minister, former Senator the Honourable Matthias Cormann, a role that placed me in an office at the centre of the government's fiscal policy decisions during some truly unprecedented times. My early time there was focused on a key objective: delivering a budget surplus and to fix the structural deficit left by the Rudd, Gillard and Rudd government. It was a challenging task, but I was fortunate to be part of a team that worked tirelessly to bring us closer to that goal. I distinctly remember achieving a balanced budget, and then the following year, the announcement of a forecast budget surplus. However, the arrival of COVID-19 changed everything. What was once a focus on fiscal discipline and surplus management turned into a race against time to prevent our economy falling into recession. And when that became impossible to stop, a focus on ensuring unemployment didn't rise to a level that would stop our economy from recovering to normal post-pandemic. It was a remarkable time to be an advisor in government, and particularly a budget advisor. The experience of navigating such a rapid and dramatic change in priorities provided invaluable lessons. By the way, I also gained some fascinating insights into the federal government's perspective on Metronet's costings you could say that differed from what the relevant WA government minister was indicating publicly at the time, but that's a discussion for another day. I want to take a moment to reflect on our extraordinary fortune at finding ourselves as Western Australians in 2025. As Western Australians, we are fortunate beyond measure. The opportunities and quality of life that we enjoy here are unmatched by most wealthy nations across the world. While some countries may boast higher wages or lower unemployment or some other hard economic figure, no place combines our living standards with such a pristine natural environment, warm climate and access to open space. Our state, like the rest of Australia, has a unique sense of egalitarianism. During the mining boom, Western Australians saw firsthand how wealth was accessible to anyone willing to work hard and upskill, regardless of their social status. In many ways, WA has been blessed by history. Unlike many others, we have not been shaped by civil war, famine, or totalitarian oppression. Australia fought 2 world wars, but emerged more resilient from those wars, not devastated by them. We share no borders with troublesome neighbours, and while we acknowledge the wrongs committed against Aboriginal Australians, few places have worked as extensively as we have to right these wrongs in modern times. We are a state full of opportunity, and I'm truly honoured to spend my time in this place working to see those opportunities realised for others. I want to say something about the Liberal Party in Western Australia. There are lessons to be learned from the recent election. I believe the WA Liberals must reclaim our mantle as the party that understands Western Australia and the party that will fight for its interests. The Liberals have a proud and indisputable West Australian story, one we have worked very hard for. The governments of David Brand, Charles of Richard Court, Colin Barnett transformed us into a modern, prosperous and forward-thinking state, the economic powerhouse of the nation. It was the vision of David Brand and his then Minister for Industrial Development, Charles Court, that pushed for the lifting of the iron ore export ban in 1960. Richard Court restored WA's reputation after the WA Ink scandal and opened the LNG market to China. And it was Colin Barnett who reshaped the Perth skyline, delivering the Perth Arena, Optus Stadium and Elizabeth Quay. And it was the WA Liberals who fought for and won the fairer GST deal for our state in 2017, while many other parliamentarians remained silent. I will talk now about my values and approach in this place. We each bring our own set of values, experiences and aspirations. Mine are shaped by my background in business, my time in governments, and my roots in the Perth Hills. And while this speech is not the time to map out a grand vision, I do want to briefly share some of what guides my approach. I am a Christian and believe and affirm the Apostles' Creed. I hold conservative views mixed with a view that a market-based economy and the free enterprise system is essential to delivering the prosperity needed to underpin the society we want to deliver and on our future aspirations. I'm also a pragmatist and became so from holding advisor roles for ministers in governments at various times over the past 15 years. I want to stress, however, that while I think government is about practical consideration, considered decision-making, it's not a technocracy. In the end, the biggest, most fundamental decisions governments are called on to make are not reducible to a calculation spreadsheet. These decisions rely on the judgments of our parliamentarians around concepts like fairness and opportunity and the balance between individual and social responsibility. I come with an understanding that while in this place you can't theorise forever on every issue that comes our way, at a deeply practical level, we're here to make decisions, and decisions aimed at fixing the problems that are right in front of us. Ultimately, I enter this place with a problem-solving mindset, an approach that I think is best. As a West Australian, I believe our state's prosperity is tied to how we engage with the world, and particularly our region. Our success as a trading nation and a trading state has never been about resources alone. It's been about reliability. From Japan in the 1960s to Korea and China in later decades, our edge has been that we turn up, do the job and deliver quality to our trading partners. That has built wealth, created jobs and paid for the hospitals and schools in every corner of Western Australia. That same reputation must now be extended to our emerging partners, India, Indonesia, Vietnam and others. This will take unity across state and federal governments, industry and the broader community, and we must walk that path with maturity. China remains our largest trading partner, and we must be honest about the complexity that comes with that. I support a relationship that is principled and pragmatic, one that protects our sovereignty, defends our values and respects human rights, while also recognising that economic estrangement is not a wise or realistic strategy for our state. This is not a binary world, and I believe that Western Australia should continue to lead the nation in modelling calm, strategic engagement with China, as was done well during Colin Barnett's government. Closer to home, there is no more urgent domestic challenge than housing. Home ownership is drifting out of reach for too many young Western Australians. It's not just an economic issue, but a democratic one. A society where people feel they have no stake in the system is not a stable society. I believe that the Liberal Party should speak to this issue with bold housing reform and a return to sound economic management as the focus. And in doing so, we can win the support of a new generation of young Western Australians. Too often, housing debates turn into a blame game. The reality is, governments, by layering on regulation and failing to properly coordinate infrastructure with housing supply, have made the job harder, not easier. We need less bureaucracy, more transparency, and planning systems that actually enable development, not stifle it. And while we rightly talk about affordability and access, let us not forget beauty. Perth is a city of remarkable natural beauty, and we owe it to future generations to match that with a built environment that inspires, connects, and endures. That means saying no to soulless urban sprawl and yes to density done well, walkable, vibrant, thoughtful places where communities thrive and people feel at home. Prior to entering this place, I served on the board of an education charity, Street Level Australia, which did a lot of great work in this space, and I look forward to engaging further in this area during my time here. And finally, I'll mention one final reform I believe Western Australia urgently needs, and that is the establishment of an independent parliamentary budget office, like the one that exists in Canberra. Such an office would enable all sides of politics to properly cost policies before an election, allowing for informed debate and genuine transparency. Too often, we see a gap between campaign promises and governing realities, and it is WA taxpayers who pay for it, Metronet being the most obvious case in point in recent times. A project with costs that have blown out spectacularly, demonstrating the financial assumptions behind it, which were presented to the West Australian public at multiple elections, were never properly tested before Labor came to office. An independent budget office would not only ensure greater fiscal discipline, it would help avoid the all too common cycle of blame shifting when governments change hands. It would promote responsible government, reduce waste, and help build public trust in our institutions. If we want to model the best practice in financial stewardship, this is the place to start. Now, enough about the heavy policy stuff. I want to turn to thank yous and recognition for the many people who have contributed to me being here. I will start with the most important person, and that is my wife, Abigail, who I'd not be here without. Abigail reads Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice almost every year around Christmas time. If you've seen the film or series or read the book, there's a scene where the characters speak and debate over what makes a highly esteemed, truly accomplished woman. Mr. Darcy claims she must have a thorough knowledge of music, singing, drawing and dancing, and the modern languages to deserve the word. And besides all this, she must possess a certain something in her air and manner of walking. The tone of her voice, her address and expression, or the word would be but half deserved. Ms. Elizabeth Bennet says in reply to him that she never saw such a woman and that she would certainly be a fearsome thing to behold. Even without the acquisition of Abigail's many accomplishments, she is by nature a fearsome thing to behold. And I'm so incredibly proud that we're raising together two daughters, both of whom I have no doubt will grow up to be fearsome things to behold as well, and not just when they can't find their toys. Abby, you are the most loyal, generous and strong-willed soul that I know. I've learned so much from you because I am loved by you. You reflect our incredible God and his heart for justice, which you pursue and fight for with absolute passion and integrity, and I'm so grateful to have you by my side. I want to mention some former work colleagues from the property sector. Western Australia's success is built on individuals and enterprises, And prior to entering this place, I worked as a development manager for one of Western Australia's great companies, Atlas Building, in their social and affordable housing team. And prior to that, at Australia's largest master planned community developer, Stockland, where I specialised in medium density urban infill projects in Perth and worked specifically on their Nara and Canopy developments. These roles gave me a direct insight into the challenges facing Perth's urban development and the broader building and property development sector in Western Australia. I valued greatly the mentorship and friendship at Atlas from Julian Ambrose and Calvin Ryan, and prior to that, Cole Dutton and Andrew Wallace at Stockland. These people are all outstanding industry leaders who are doing very hard things very, very well. As for Liberal Party supporters and friends, I acknowledge my many friends and supporters who have been with me on this journey. There are many people who have helped me along the way. To the State Director Simon Morgan, Deputy Director Jessie Watton and President Caroline DeRusso, and Treasurer Aidan Depiazzi, I say thank you. I also want to thank two former State Directors, Sam Calabrese and Ben Morton, and former State President Faye Duda, who are all present this evening. To Sam Van Emden, Dean Wicken, Heather Gilmore, Rod Henderson, Peter Stewart, Phil Turtle and Bill Alati, thank you for your support at various points along the journey. To my former colleague from Steve Irons' office, Jonathan Martin, who taught me about grassroots campaigning, thank you as well. My former ministerial colleagues, Andrew Gasper and Denise Rice. I also want to thank some former and current parliamentarians who have shaped my journey. My friend, Senator Matt O'Sullivan, who is here with us this evening, former Senator Matthias Cormann, Senator Slade Brockman, and the Honourable Peter Collier. Peter, I'll miss your annual speech at the YL Ball about the importance of being a constitutional monarchist. There are far too many other people to mention tonight, but many have contributed to me being here, and I thank them all. In conclusion, I would like to acknowledge this council. Having previously served as a senior advisor to the Leader of the Government in the Australian Senate, I've gained a deep appreciation for the significance of a bicameral parliament and the distinct roles each House of Parliament plays. The checks and balances provided by a second parliamentary chamber are a cornerstone of democracy, essential in holding governments accountable and ensuring a fair system. I wish to express my sincere gratitude to those who have helped me settle into this role. Madam President, the Clerk and all the staff of the Parliament, the Whip, the Honourable Neil Thompson, our opposition leaders, Basil Zemplis, MLA, and the Honourable Nick Garan, and our Deputy Leader, Libby Medham, MLA. As I stand here tonight, I am mindful that my political journey has only just begun. Holding elected office comes with enormous responsibility, and we are but temporary custodians of our seats in this Parliament, entrusted with the opportunity to serve the people of Western Australia. Regardless of whether we sit on the Liberal or Labor side or wherever we stand in the political spectrum, we all share one common goal: to improve the lives of the people of Western Australia. Though our approaches may differ, we are united in our desire to leave this state in a stronger, fairer and more prosperous condition than we inherited it. Thank you.
Well done, mate.
Thank you so much. Thank you, mate. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it. No worries.
Question out of the way.
That's it. Yeah, question two. Thank you very much.
Are you coming on?
Thank you.